Hello everyone, my name is Kelsounds, and today I want to make some snares inside of Faceplant. I thought I'd take you along the journey and show you how I would go about it. And I'm also going to be releasing 20 snare samples in my Patreon as well, so the link will be in my bio for that. So, a snare makes up pretty much three things. The body, the transient, and a tail. And once you got those three things down, I mean, you pretty much got yourself a snare. So let me show you what I mean here. So this is going to be our body for the snare. The body is like it's like the tom part of the snare. And then we're gonna make another group, and this is gonna be called the transient. And that is when you first hit the snare. And for that, actually delete that analog and put in a noise generator for the transient, because it's just nothing but noise. I'm gonna put a filter on that to cut out the lows of that. We increase the slope a little bit. There we go. I'm gonna get a sine wave for the body. It's not supposed to be a sawtooth wave. It's supposed to sound like a tom kind of. And then I'm going to make one more group here inside of Faceplant and call this the tail, which of course is that hissing noise, which is like the last part of the snare. And for this, I'm just going to put a noise as well. You could use a sampler and use like different noise samples, which is really cool and interesting. You can get a lot of different, very interesting effects with different kinds of noises. Like pink noise and stuff, or maybe you got a weird sound and it has a lot of noise in it. Maybe you can use that, get some really cool experimental stuff going on. But just for this video, I'm going to use a noise generator, and then I'm going to put a filter on this to cut out the lows so it's not interfering with the tom noise of our snare. Kind of like the same thing with our transient. And usually I make my snares inside of Serum. And a lot of people do, actually. I've seen a lot of videos of people how people use Serum to make their snares, and it's pretty much the same concept, same idea, except it's just in a different synth. I mean, it's pretty much all the same thing, really. It's just your preferred synth. But yeah, you can achieve this inside of Serum or any other synth. Making a snare drum inside of a synth, once you got these three basic, like, fundamental building blocks of a snare, which is the transient, body, and tail, you're pretty much good to go, really. I'm going to control the volume of each individual part of the snare with an LFO. So I'm going to make three groups here, 1, 2, and 3, and kind of just rename them each their own thing. So for example, this is going to be called the transient, this is going to be called the body, and then I'm going to name this group the tail. Voila! Each group I'm going to put an LFO in. Here we go. And then we'll start off with... We'll start off with the transient. So I'm going to put this on off so it only goes one time, kind of like a one shot. And then I'm going to... okay, we forgot some important stuff in here. The envelope. Without that, there won't be any sound. And same here. Whoops. Yeah, don't forget the envelope or your curve. Then you won't have any sound going out, so whoops. Alright, so this is going to control the volume of the transient, so I'm going to automate the gain, and we'll start off with that before we start off with anything else. So I'm going to grab this part of the LFO and make it like a very fast shape, kind of, so maybe like this. That'll work. Remember, a transient, it's very sudden burst of volume, so it's pretty fast. Actually, it would help if I put some MIDI down. Whoops. Well, that's not right. Oh, wait, are we in the right thing? Something's not right. Oh, okay. Okay, no, we're not in the right thing. I'm sorry, I'm goofing up today. This is weird. Alright, so there that is. That's the transient. Boom. And you see, it's very fast. Well, the louder we have it, more apparent it is in the sound. Sorry if you can hear me clicking like a million times on my, my keyboard. Pretty much spamming it. But yeah, anyways, that's the transient. Just a really fast sound. And I think that's good. Alright, so the next thing we're going to work on is the body of the snare, which is the tom. So I made it a sine wave. I'm going to do the same thing. Make this, or turn this off so it doesn't loop. And then I'm going to make a kind of actually move this out of the way of the transient. So kind of, there we go, that's good. And then kind of do this thing. Make this kind of shape. And a lot of this, you just have to do a lot of tweaking to kind of get the sound that you want. So there's no like perfect way of doing this. Just kind of messing around with the knobs until it sounds good to you. And of course that's too slow. So we're gonna boost up the speed here. All right, so I'll say about 5. And that is the body of the snare. Now we're going to work on the tail of the snare. And so I'm gonna do the same thing that I did with every LFO. Turn off the looping and come over here and move it out of the way of the transient. This part isn't going to come in as quick because it's the very last part of the snare. It's like the hissing noise. So I'm going to turn this on and then automate the gain here. And let's see what this sounds like. And of course it's too slow, but... And don't be afraid to mess around with the shapes of the LFO. And that is a snare for you. That's pretty much it, actually. That's how you would make a snare inside of Faceplant. And of course, the effects is where it starts to get interesting. If you add some overdrive or distortion, it brings out the snare drum even more. So it goes from sounding like this. Actually, I'm going to boost this a little bit. To sounding like this. Oh, well, alright, and that's why we gotta tweak the knobs a little bit. And the body is too loud. So I'm going to lower that. And yeah, like I said before, a lot of this is just tweaking the parameters. And you see, it's already starting to sound like a snare. And actually, before I keep working on the sound here, I'm going to add one more new group and call this the master pitch. And automate the master pitch over here to make it sound better. And then we're going to turn that off, put it on one shot mode. Then we're going to go ahead and make this kind of shape. It's too slow, so let's boost it up a little bit so it can be a bit faster. And yeah, there we go. And actually, I'm going to put a limiter on this. I'll just put a glue compressor on it at the end of the chain in here. And voila. And then, of course, doing some post-processing to the sound and just tweaking things to get the sound that you want. I'm going to add a saturator. And then I'm going to add a frequency shifter. Set 15. And I'm going to make the body a little bit shorter. Oops, no, not that. And then I'm going to add a multipass and do some upwards compression on the highs here, or some multiband dynamics, I guess. Just a one band dynamic going on here with a slow release and a slower attack here, and the knee turned all the way down. So that's what it sounds like with the multipass. This is what it sounds like without the multipass. Kind of brings out the resonance at the bottom of the snare. And then I'm going to add a convolver. And what I'll do here is actually, for this part, I'll add another group and call this mod for modulation. And I'm going to modulate the convolver so I can have some reverb at the tail of the snare. So let's see. Oh, that's kind of mono. There we go, I like that better. And then what I'm going to do is kind of just make a shape like this so the reverb is out of the way of the main body of the snare and it just comes in towards the tail end of the snare. And I don't really like that it's the whole snare. I kind of just want it to be the highs. So I guess what I'll do here is grab a filter and automate the cutoff to get that. There we go. And let's see, that's kind of too long of a decay. Let's see what happens if I turn on the stretch. Now that sounds pretty good. Alright, sweet. Let's see. Oh, that sounds a whole lot better. So I have a live room impulse response. And that sounds pretty cool. And I'm gonna just tweak this a little bit. And I'm going to mess with the stretching here of the impulse response. Turn it up to 30. Or 35. Let's see what that sounds like. And then just for funs, I'm gonna go ahead and add another saturator here. And I'm gonna add another filter to cut out the lows here. Actually, you know what? I'm gonna get rid of saturator and add a distortion instead. And put it on saturate. And then I'm gonna add another slice EQ. Kind of bring down some of these muddy frequencies. Probably start off at 250. And there we go. That is our snare drum. Hope you enjoyed, and I hope this was helpful.